Running out of IP addresses in Azure used to mean downtime and redesign, but now Azure just gave us a way to expand without the headache. Hi everyone, I'm Travis, and in this video, we're diving into a powerful new capability of Azure Virtual Networks, multiple address prefixes for subnets. This feature is a game changer for anyone managing Azure cloud infrastructure. Before we get started, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell icon so you're notified when new content drops. Be sure to check out my courses at udemy.com, including my latest, A Beginner's Guide to the AZ900, and a big thank you to all my channel members. Your support means a lot. Let's talk about how things used to work. When we created a subnet in Azure, we assigned a single address prefix. If that range filled up, the only option was to create a new subnet and re-architect everything around it. That means we were stuck with the number of IP addresses in that original subnet. For example, a /24 subnet gives us 251 usable IPs. Some organizations go even smaller. A /27 subnet only gives 27 usable IPs. Over time, that might not be enough, and we'd have to build new, larger subnets and migrate services over to that. But now Azure lets us assign multiple address prefix to a single subnet. That gives us flexibility, scalability, and way less downtime. What does that mean for us? It means dynamic scaling. We can expand our subnet IP range without recreating it or migrating services. Once the initial prefix fills up, VMs will start using the next prefix in the subnet. There's no downtime. We just add new prefixes and existing resources stay online. Plus, subnet management gets simpler because we don't have to juggle multiple subnets for the same workload. Now, there are a few things to keep in mind when using multiple address prefixes. At the time of this recording, we can only add prefixes using PowerShell, the Azure CLI, or template deployments. I'll show you how with PowerShell in the demo coming up. And also, it might be available in the portal by the time you're watching this. Multiple prefixes support VMs and VM scale sets, and you can't remove a prefix if any IPs in the range are still in use. Also, network security groups and route tables apply to the entire subnet, no matter how many prefixes it has. All right, let's jump into a quick demo where I'll show you how to manage multiple address prefixes using PowerShell. You'll see just how easy it is to scale your network without disruption. And as always, you'll find links to the code used in this demo below. Here we are in the Azure portal. We'll start by reviewing an existing VNet and subnet. This VNet has one subnet. Let's view the address space. Very simple, there's just one address space. That's the 10.50.0.0/16 address space. Next, let's go to subnets. Just a simple subnet with 251 available IP addresses. If we open the IPv4 range, we can modify the range, but there's no way to add another range of IP addresses to the subnet, at least not at the time of recording. What if we ran out of IP addresses for this subnet? 251 is a lot, but we may have used a smaller IP block or have a large deployment that includes scale sets. That's the issue multiple subnet prefixes solves, adding another range of IP addresses into the subnet. Let's cancel and go to VS Code to add another range of IP addresses to the subnet. Here we are at VS Code, and you can use any version of PowerShell. I just like VS Code because it's easy to use. At the time of recording this, it's not possible to add multiple prefix subnets to a VNet in the portal. It has to be done with PowerShell or the Azure CLI. PowerShell is used in this example. I'll leave a link to the documentation with the Azure CLI commands below. First, connect to Azure with the connect AZ account command, or if you need to verify you're connected, you can use the get AZ context command. That looks good, I'm connected. Next, we need to verify that we have the az.network module installed. This requires version 4.3.0 or newer. We'll use the get installed module command, passing in az.network. This computer is on version 7.19.1, so we meet the requirements. If you have an older version, you can use the install module command to update the PowerShell module. Next, we'll add a new prefix to the existing subnet, the one we just reviewed. The first step is to assign the virtual network to a variable we'll use later. Use the get az virtual network command, passing in the resource group and the VNet name. We can see the existing subnets by viewing the subnet property of the VNet. That matches what we saw in the portal. There's one /24 address prefix. Next, we'll use splat to define the parameters used for the set AZ Virtual Network Subnet config command. Splatting is a way to simplify parameters. We don't have to type them in when we run the command. We set them in a hash table and then pass them into the command. In the end, it does the same thing. We need to define the virtual network. We already assigned that to the variable VNet. Then we need to set the name parameter. That's the name of the subnet. And then the address prefixes. Here we're adding the existing 10.50.1.0/24 network prefix and the new 10.50.2.0/24 prefix. It's important to add the existing and any new prefixes. If we didn't include the existing prefix, it would be removed or cause an error if any of the IP addresses were in use. After that, we pass the parameters into the set AZ Virtual Network Subnet config command. Let's highlight and run this block of code. And next, we'll use the set AZ Virtual Network command to update the virtual network. Once finished, we can see our subnets by viewing the subnet properties on the VNet. Now it shows 2 address prefixes on the one subnet. Let's go to the portal to review the new settings. We'll refresh. Now we have 2 IPv4 subnet prefixes. We can open each to view its configuration. With this configuration, once the first IP block in the subnet runs out of available IP addresses, the second will be used. Let's see how to create a virtual network with multiple subnets next. Here we are back in VS Code. Let's create a brand new VNet and subnet with multiple subnet prefixes. We don't have to run any get commands like we did in the previous example because the VNet does not yet exist. Let's start by setting the subnet parameters. We'll call the subnet multi-subnet and provide the address prefixes of 10.110.2.0/24 and 10.210.2.0/24. And notice that these 2 IP blocks are from 2 different address spaces. Next, we'll pass in these parameters to the new AZ Virtual Network Subnet config command and assign the new subnet to the subnet config variable. Let's highlight and run this block of code. After that, we'll create a new VNet in the subnet demo resource group in the West US region. The name is multi-VNet. We have multiple address spaces defined for the VNet. The 2 subnets belong to these address spaces. And finally, we'll pass in the subnet configuration. Those parameters are passed into the new AZ Virtual Network command. Let's highlight and run that block of code next. That finished, we can view the subnets on the new VNet with the next command. This gets the virtual network and displays the subnet property. That shows the 2 subnet prefixes in one subnet. We can also see this if we go back to the Azure portal. And again, you may need to refresh. We'll open up the VNet. And if we go to address spaces, there are the 2 address spaces. And if we go to subnets, we have one subnet with 2 IP prefixes belonging to 2 different address spaces. What if we don't need the prefix anymore? Do we need to delete and recreate the subnet? No, we don't. We can remove a prefix as long as none of the IP addresses in that prefix are in use. Let's go to the first subnet we added the prefix to, VNet demo subnet. I need to be a little bit more creative with these names. Go to subnets. For this example, we don't need the 10.50.2.0 subnet prefix anymore. Let's go back to VS Code and remove it. Here we are at the last example. Let's start by getting the existing VNet and assigning it to the VNet variable. We can view the subnets and prefixes with the subnet properties on that VNet. That matches what we just saw in the portal. Next, we'll set the properties we'll use for the set AZ Virtual Network command. We'll pass in the VNet variable, the name of the subnet, and the subnet prefix we want to keep. This will overwrite the existing value, leaving one prefix. Let's select that along with the set AZ Virtual Network Subnet config command. Run the command. Finally, we can apply these settings with a set AZ Virtual Network command. That sets or saves the configuration. Let's view the new subnet configuration with the get AZ Virtual Network command and viewing the subnets property. Now it only has one subnet prefix. Let's go back to the portal. We'll go into the demo subnet. Go to our subnets. Refresh. And that removed the second subnet prefix. That is how we update or add a prefix to an existing subnet, create a new VNet and multi-prefix subnet, and remove a prefix from an existing subnet. That is how to create and modify a virtual network with multiple prefix subnets in Azure. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.